It's Oldhammer ART time.
Older gamers will know who this is. It's the Emperor of Mankind. Yep, that's your man right there. This is a much rarer piece of art featuring the Emperor as opposed to the pieces nowadays that are constantly recycled. Actually, I think this one only ever appeared in the Rogue Trader rulebook. It's a shame really, as I think it's nice and deserves much more exposure. Now the Emperor, as portrayed here, looks proper old, very poorly looking indeed. It looks like he has one of the fevers I used to get as a teenager. Luckily, I don't get those anymore. Horrible old things. The Emperor's skin has an interesting texture to it. Are those lines on his skin cracks or veins? It gives him an almost stained glass window look, which is fitting for his age. There are pipes and tubes absolutely everywhere. I would assume it's part of the Emperor's life support. But what do they provide him with? Some sort of weird chemicals? There's even what look like some valves in a few of them, similar to the ones on my old fish tank airlines. Next to the tubes in the Emperor's waist are what look to be holes. Maybe some other tubes have fallen out. Maybe this is the mechanical failings that have only recently been discovered. Can someone please just plug them back in? Dotted around the room are some of Henry Cavill's mates, the Adeptus Custodes. There's a few around the Emperor and what I think is a line of them leading away into the distance. The guns the Custodes are carrying, however, do not look familiar to me. That's not a spear, is it? It's a laser gun. They actually look a bit like shuriken catapults to me, which is interesting. Now the throne room here is absolutely huge. Is it dedicated purely to the function of the throne, or is it just a big back room hidden away out of sight? Oh, also those archway things look a lot like some of the sets in Event Horizon. Coincidence? I think not. Now, a lot of people say that Event Horizon might be some sort of prequel to the Warhammer 40,000 universe as we know it today. It is an interesting movie and it's well worth a watch if you've not seen it before. Okay, so apparently I'm now dead. And I would imagine a lot of you are too, and I do apologise for that. And this is because I read The Gentleman's Shoulder Pad, and again I imagine a few of you did. If you can read this, you are dead. It's a bit like one of those car bumper stickers, isn't it? If you can read this, you're too close. We also need to add this one to the list of Rogue Trader era graffiti. Now usually these old pieces of art are modelled on someone, either a staff member or famous personality of the era. I'm not sure that I recognise this one. Does he look like anyone in particular to you? The outfit looks like one that Judge Dredd might wear. I think it's all those hard bits of armour, and maybe because it looks like it might supposed to be black. On his shoulder, he has a patch or badge. The badge has the acronym FYA on it. What do you think that could mean? F you all? F your aunt? We need to ask the artist. We are being shot at with an unknown weapon. The muzzle flash is obscuring half of it. Now, judging by its size and general shape, I would assume it's an autogun of some kind. Hanging off the weapon's straps are feathers. Interestingly, the original Deathwing, Terminators and miniatures and accompanying artwork used a lot of feathers and feather iconography. It's since been phased out. A shame, as it looked really good. Well, I thought it did.
Johnny 5 is alive!
Who remembers Short Circuit? Such a fantastic movie, and I loved both as a kid. So what we have here is a robot of the Rogue Trader era. There were a lot more robots kicking around back then, it would seem. You only seem to get a few these days, don't you? Some Mechanicum odds and ends, and what, some Leagues of Votan stuff? Most robots look pretty normal, with legs and arms and things. This one Looks a little different. Looks a little strange. But I still like it though. At the end of the day, this literally appears to be just a gun or collection of guns on wheels with a head. Although the general shape does remind me of the hunter-killer tanks from the Terminator movies. Why haven't we had a movie of the future war yet? That's the one we all want to see, right? Right? I can't be alone on this, surely. Now I've just realised the sort of semicircle wheels look a lot like the same shaped parts on the bottom of the rig the Nostromo is pulling in Alien. That had big circular bits, and I'm sure they had the same veiny ball details. I need to go back and watch Alien now. Any excuse for me, because I love that movie. Now sadly we can't tell how big this robot is. There's nothing else in the picture for reference. It could be a huge building-sized beast, or perhaps a tiny roving robot like that thing from the 1980s movie Booby Trap, and I had forgotten all about that until now. According to a quick Google, it was called Wired to Kill in other parts of the world. Have you ever seen it? Now, do you reckon this robot is an Imperial contraption or something else? Maybe it's one of the Men of Iron. We need to see more of those guys, in my opinion. This would be another interesting thing that would be fun to scratch build, and I think the hardest part would be sourcing the wheels. Half a ballcock valve, do you think? That might work.
I keep meaning to do some Rogue Trader era style scratch builds, or kit bashes. Some sort of vehicle or structure or something. Is that something you guys would like to see? If so, then please let me know in the comments below.
Here we have an old girlfriend of mine. Someone I dated when I was around 18 or so. Well, it sure reminds me of her. I think it's the angry stare. So this is something you guys might have heard about, but never seen. This is the original depiction of what is known as an Enslaver. They crop up a few times in the lore, but I think this might be the only depiction of them. If I'm wrong, I'm sure someone will let me know. My gut tells me this is based on an old Dungeons and Dragons monster. Wasn't there some sort of creature that could enslave you or control your mind? Something to do with a brain, I think. At face value, all this thing seems to be is a veiny ball, with a smaller ball on top, containing an eye and some tentacles, two of which have suckers. The tentacles with suckers look a lot like how I remember the tentacles that come into the garage in the movie The Mist. The Mist was a good movie, and it was also a good story. I'm sure that I read it when it was part of a short story collection though. It wasn't a book, I'm sure. Maybe I'm misremembering. Now with all those tentacles, how do you think this thing gets about? How does it ambulate? Does it walk on the tentacles? Or is it a floater? In the rules, it said these things were so powerful that it was best not to use them in game. If that was the case these days, people would field whole armies of them because we've got to chase that meta. Okay, so I have to admit, at first glance when I saw this, I assumed this guy had a meat cleaver on the top of his head. But it's not, is it? It's a hat, or a visor. So I think this is a man or a woman, a human, I would assume. We can't really be certain of it as they have some sort of covering on their face. It does look human underneath to me though. I would say this is some sort of Imperial subject, what with being I think is human. I don't get any Eldar or other Xenos vibes from it. What he actually is though, I don't know. The back of this person's head looks like Robocop's, and I think it's because of those panel lines. We've seen some people like this before, where we mentioned their hats looked like overgrown toenails. This one is shorter though. Maybe he's lower in the ranks and therefore has a smaller hat. So what could be the reason for the face covering? Is it even a cover? Maybe he hasn't yet finished growing his face. I think I've seen that in an old 80s movie too. Am I thinking of Hellraiser now? I can see a shadow or depression there where I think an eye would be or is, so I do think it's a cover. The expression on the face appears to be sadness. We can't confirm it due to the covering, but I think I see it in there somewhere. The inclination of the head, I believe, implies it too.
Now, after thinking of the face growing scene, I have a feeling I might be thinking of Critters. Did someone grow a face in that?
As the Chancellor in the Dark Crystal would say, what on earth is going on here, eh? Well, he doesn't say the last bit, by the way. So this is an orc, and I think you would have guessed as such. What with orcs being rather common in the 40k universe. A lot more popular than, say, Enslavers or Harad. What even is a Harad anyway? And have I pronounced it right? So looking at this orc, I had the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Something looked off, you know? Can any of you guys tell what it is? Well, it's the legs. Most orcs have huge, chunky, Schwarzenegger-sized legs, but this one, he has lovely, smooth, lithe legs like Andre Agassi. Remember when there was a big deal about him shaving his legs so he could run faster? Was that legit, or was that all a load of bollocks? Amusingly, the orc's knees look to me like the same as the back of the legs of that psycho beast from Red Dwarf, the one that kept Rimmer captive. I've forgotten its name. I do, however, fondly remember the insult it used on him. You dank tuft of rectal pubic hair. Wonderful. Seasons 1 to 6 of Red Dwarf were a real class act. The writing was amazing. Along with the weapon the orc's holding, we'll get to that, he also has something else strapped to his back. It looks a bit like the RPG thing that Billy has at the end of Beverly Hills Cop 2. I've recently rewatched that movie, and it's not as good as I remember. The first one is bloody brilliant though. So his main weapon is what I'm sure is a bolter, with a cool ratcheting magazine by the look of things. It also has a bayonet that's so big it needs a cutout for where the magazine goes. It's wonderful. Oh, and don't forget the blood on it. Grizzly. So where's Gandalf when you need him? It looks like we're back to Caradhras. Let's hope Saruman doesn't try to bring down the mountain. We always love that scene in the Snakeworks house. We all try to imitate just what the hell Saruman is saying. Misty, misty, ba-di-da, I am the Lord of ba-di-da. Or something like that. It could also be the scene when the beacons are being lit. Probably one of my favourite scenes in the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I love the music in that part. At the end of the day, what we're looking at here is a mountain range. It's definitely not waves. How Matthew McConaughey got waves and mountains mixed up in Interstellar, I do not know. I like that movie too, by the way, and I really like the robots in it. Tars and Case. Was there a third one? Other than what appears to be snow covering the mountains, I can't really see anything going on in the picture. There's no figures or vehicles or settlements, just mountains. There's a couple of darker bits in the picture that might be other things, but I don't think so. On the left is a shape that looks like the Martian flying saucers from the 50s War of the Worlds movie, and in the middle is a wiggly line that you might say is some sort of land train. But I'm reaching harder than Sam in Mount Doom with that one. I think it's just mountains.
Now, when I was a lad, I once climbed a mountain outside the back of my auntie's house in Wales. Near the top, I found a big round boulder. I then proceeded to push it down. It was around the size of a beach ball. It went flying and tumbling down the side of the mountain and smashed through a big wall. And all the rocks and stones that comprised the wall went flying. I felt bad at the time and I feel bad now. I wonder if that wall is still in pieces. I'm sorry if it was your wall.
My name is Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. We are autonomous robots from the planet Cybertron. What do you guys reckon? Could this be Optimus Prime in the 41st millennium? Probably not, but we can dream. Whatever it is, it's a robot. Well, I'd say it's a robot, it's also quite possibly someone in a mech suit, and I'll touch on that in a moment. Now Optimus here has a bloody massive crotch flap, similar to the crotch flaps on the current Imperial Knight miniatures and designs. Maybe they're related somehow. Now, do you see the interesting current Warhammer 40,000 miniature tie-in? Look at the wrists. They look like Tau battlesuit wrists, and not only do they just look like it, they have the Tau logo circle thing on them too. Coincidence? I doubt it. This is the first piece of art featuring a Tau battlesuit, I reckon, and it turned up in Rogue Trader. Behind Optimus is a massive ball. Is it a planet or an explosion? If it's an explosion, then he's doing that cool no-look-back thing, walk away, that they do in movies these days. The Joker and Iron Man come to mind, but I'm sure there's more. Here we have a really interesting pair of vehicles, and I think they're referred to as Juggernauts, as in massive ground vehicles. One actually looks like the Juggernaut tank from Star Wars, doesn't it? Love that thing. We didn't see much of it in the movie. I also want the Lego version, so if you have it laying about and don't want it, then please let me know. I really like the designs of these. I think they're really cool. These are the sorts of things I like to see people scratch build and use as sceneries in their game. Or scenery, I should say. Sadly, we don't see much of that going on anymore either. The Juggernaut on the left with its big wheels reminds me of the buggy thing in that old arcade game Moon Patrol. Not Mole Patrol, that was a Super Scope game for the SNES, but Moon Patrol. I think it was made by Atari, but I can't confirm that. I'm sure some of you guys out there will be able to let us all know. It looks a little like the new Leagues of Votan vehicles. I have literally no idea what the name of those was though. The Plunderer or Attack Crack. I've forgotten completely. It also looks a bit like the new Necromunda vehicle with the trailers. What's it called? The Cargo 8? I do like that thing, but it's bloody expensive though. Now, even though the artwork in the picture is black and white, for some reason I see it as yellow in my mind's eye. I wonder why that is. After studying it for a while, I've come to realise it actually looks a lot like the Overlander vehicle from Terrorhawks. That thing was bloody brilliant, and I wish they did a model kit of it. The second tank is not so interesting. Only one thing comes to mind, and that is it looking like one of the old Megaforce tanks. It had a button on the top that spanned these big arms around and knocked your toy tanks out of the way. It even had that raised cockpit thing on a boom arm. Sadly, Megaforce toys didn't seem to stick around for very long. It's a shame as they were quite cool, you know. I recommend going to have a look at those if you get a moment. You might even have some in your basement or attic. Now, considering being in your basement or attic, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Josh. If you are enjoying the content on the channel, then please consider joining us on Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. So I'm not actually sure if this piece is a joke or not. My gut tells me it actually is meant to be serious. Well, as serious as you can get within Rogue Trader. But it does make me laugh every time I look at it. So what we're looking at is a Space Orc with what appears to be a tank turret for a hat. Is it a hat with a barrel, or is that an actual turret? I really like the Orc's face, specifically his bottom lip. It's really big, like the rind on a massive pork chop. Pork chop lips we'll call him, and he's great. I like to paint my Orc bottom lips pink, as I think it gives you a nice bit of colour contrast. What say you guys? Do you like pink lips on your orcs? He's also wearing some wonderful shades. Lots of orcs in this era wore shades. Where do you think they got them from? Do they buy them or steal them? Maybe they make them themselves. The idea of an orc accessories store is amusing. Underneath his head is what appears to be a chin guard. It looks like it could open up, but if it closed it would crush his head. I don't really know what's going on there. Anyway, we really need to talk about the hat, don't we? The tank turret hat. Does it fire, or is it just a novelty hat? The sort of thing you might get from Great Yarmouth Seafront. I need to know. Also on his belt is a big gurning face. The way it's been drawn suggests it's alive. Maybe it's a belt squig. That would be cool. When it comes to clothing, the orc is wearing what looks like doormats for groin protection. I guess it allows people to wipe their feet while kicking him in the nuts, perhaps. The orc is wearing what appears to be a jump pack on his back. You can see the 2 turbine things on the top. I don't remember orcs having any jump pack troops in Rogue Trader, but again I might just be misremembering. Storm Boys had them, but I don't think they arrived until 2nd edition. Again, maybe I'm wrong.
Which of those was your favourite piece? If you want to see some more art-themed videos, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.